I never believed a millionaire would choose me, but her shocking decision left me heartbroken. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It started like any other Saturday. The sun shone brightly, casting golden rays through the dusty blinds of my cramped apartment. I sat at my little kitchen table, jittery fingers gripping a chipped mug of cold coffee. My heart raced. Today was the day I would meet her. Alyssa Hart, the self-made billionaire with a smile that lit up the world and a reputation that trembled beneath its shining surface. I felt the weight of my pasta childhood littered with poverty. My mother worked 2 jobs, her hands calloused and raw, just to keep the roof over our heads. My father wasn't around. It was just us against the world. So when they told me Alyssa wanted to meet with me, I thought it was a joke, a cruel twist of fate. I was nothing just a waitress chasing dreams in a city that chews people up and spits them out. When I walked into that chic, upscale cafe, my breath caught. Crowds of people buzzed, but in the center stood her. She glimmered, and the air seemed to shift. Her long dark hair flowed like a river, and her designer clothes hugged her figure perfectly. She was everything I wasn't: polished, poised, powerful. My heart raced. Why would she even want to meet me? Our conversation was a whirlwind. She spoke in a tone that dripped with charm, full of laughter and grand ideas. I laughed along, but inside, my insecurities screamed. I was scared. I was shaking. The cafe smelled of fresh pastries and rich coffee, but all I could taste was fear, bitter and raw. Then, she said something that shattered my world. She was looking for someone to help her with her charity, an outreach program aimed at homeless youth. I felt my heart swell. Could I really do this? I envisioned myself making a difference. But inside, doubt gnawed at my stomach. Why me? As I hesitated, she grasped my hands, her grip warm and reassuring. But there was a lurking intensity in her gaze. You have a spark, Julia. I see it. I need that. Each word burned into me, igniting a flicker of hope. I thought of my mom's face, the sacrifices she made. Could I really be a part of something bigger? But just as I began to imagine a brighter future, the wind outside howled violently. Suddenly, her phone buzzed, vibrating wildly on the table. Her expression twisted, confusion clouding her bright eyes. I held my breath as she read the message. Her face fell. "2 have to go," she stammered. "They'll be in touch." And just like that, she swept away, leaving me shattered in the cozy chaos of the cafe. The world felt heavier. The cuts of reality dug deeper. My heart sank. I had believed for a moment, and now I was left with emptiness, clinging to her scent and the buzz of excitement. What had she seen in me? A flicker of hope turned into fear, choking me. I waited, breathless, for the phone to ring, for the message that never came. Time moved slowly, yet cruelly quick. Days turned to weeks, and uncertainty clawed at me. The million-dollar question was still hanging in the air. Why hadn't she reached out? Was it all a facade? Then, one night, after scrolling through her social media, something appeared on her account. A photo of a charity gala with a caption, "This one's for you, Julia." The room began to spin, and my breath caught in my throat. The word "you"? Did I dare to hope she'd meant me? Was I really meant to play a part in her story? Or did that hope dissolve into yet another cruel twist of fate? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days after the gala came and went in a blur. I hung onto that photo like a lifeline. Alyssa Hart, seated at a grand table adorned with elegant candles and crystal glassware, was smiling radiantly. A striking grin directed my way, her caption a promise or a plea. I couldn't quite decipher which. The weight of anticipation pressed against my chest as I replayed the moment in my mind over and over, desperate for clarity amid the confusion. Every day, I returned to the cafe, hoping that she would walk in, the world falling into place as if time had reset itself. I sipped my coffee, listening to the soft clinking of cups and the laughter of patrons around me. Yet each sound felt muffled as though I was submerged underwater. My friends tried to coax me out, to distract me, but all I could think of was Alyssa. Had fate been cruel or kind? Then, like clockwork, my phone buzzed. I nearly dropped my drink in my haste, flipping it over to see an unknown numera moment of hope and dread twisted into one. I answered breathlessly, "Hello?" My heart thudded loudly in my ears. "Julia?" Her voice, so familiar yet distant, sent shivers up my spine. "Alyssa?" I could hardly breathe as hope surged within me, battling with my insecurities that clawed at me. If it was just another ghost of an opportunity. "I apologize for the abruptness of my last meeting," she began, and the warmth in her voice wrapped around me, but a shadow lingered with the memories of her abrupt departure. I wanted to explain my absence. "There's been a lot going on. Please, it's okay. I understand." But really, I didn't. The longing for reassurance gnawed at me, and every second that ticked by felt like an eternity. "I've been thinking about the charity project that we should really move forward," she continued, her words swelling with determination. "It could be a chance to make a real impact, Julia. If you're still interested, absolutely, I'm in." No hesitation. My heart soared, and I could almost envision a world where I had a purpose, something beyond the plate in my hand at work, beyond the walls of my tiny apartment. "Perfect. Can we meet tomorrow? We can discuss details." "Sure," I replied, an eagerness deepening my tone. "Where?" "Same cafe," she said. "They'll look for you at ten.as." The call ended. I felt a strange flicker of apprehension alongside the thrill. What if I disappointed her? What if I couldn't meet her expectations? The questions rushed through my mind, creating currents of self-doubt that threatened to pull me under. Nevertheless, I clung to the sliver of hope that had illuminated my darkness. The next morning, I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my hair, a nervous smile plastered upon my face. I chose a simple dress, one that felt just a little too nice for a cafe, but carried the weight of new beginnings. I made my way through the city, each step carrying the burdens of my past and promises of the present. When I entered the cafe, there she was, glimmering with the kind of poise that took my breath away. The haunting question from our initial meeting blanketed me again. "Why, Julia?" Her blue eyes sparkled at the sight of me, and suddenly, all my worries seemed insignificant. I sat across from her, trying not to drown in her brilliance. "So, the project. Tell me your thoughts," she said, the excitement in her voice almost intoxicating. I poured out ideas, my passion bubbling over until I felt alive in ways I hadn't experienced before. Here was someone who believed in me, who could see potential when I'd spent years brushing aside my dreams. But as we exchanged ideas, I couldn't resist the pull of curiosity. "What happened that day? After you left, I got worried." The light in her eyes dimmed for a fleeting moment, replaced by shadows. "I had an emergency with my family father. I didn't want to burden you with my chaos," she said softly. "But that's behind us now." The shadows lingered over her, drawing my attention. She was visibly strained. The comfort she exuded anchored with hints of vulnerability, a stark contrast to the goddess she often portrayed. This revealed a side of her that resonated deeply. We had one thing in common: deep-rooted fears, whispered troubles hidden beneath our facades. As we planned our next steps, an unexpected commotion erupted at the entrance. The cafe shook with shouts, and my heart dropped when I saw a commotion near the door. People rushed to the windows, alarm flashing across their faces. I could barely hear myself think, but a sense of dread clawed through the atmosphere. Alyssa stood up, her expression turning grave. She pulled out her phone, fumbling for something. "Stay here, Julia." She began, but before I could reply, a loud crash startled the room, and the shouts grew louder. "Call 911. There's been an accident." The panic surged around us, drowning my hope in darkness. Before I could even process what was happening, Alyssa darted toward the door, her figure swallowed by the chaos. My stomach twisted with uncertainty, and as the crowd rushed toward the exit, a voice in my head insisted on following her. But another part held me back, a silent acknowledgement of my place in a world so much larger than myself. In that moment of hesitation, a new weight of worry settled over me. What had just unfolded? And why did I feel that whatever crisis was coming would lead to something deeper, something that could irrevocably change everything we had just begun? My heart raced, the spark of hope dimming as the door swung closed behind her. The chaos in the cafe pulsated around me, swirling like the storm raging in my thoughts. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block out the cacophony muffled screams, the urgent clang of metal against tile, the shrill alarm of sirens approaching. Alyssa had disappeared into that maelstrom, and all I could do was sit, frozen, with the hollow echo of her absence weighing heavily on my heart. As the patrons scrambled for the exits, I caught fleeting glimpses of panic etched on their faces. I felt like I was watching a movie, a surreal detachment taking over as I struggled to comprehend the gravity of the situation. Then, the unmistakable sound of sirens rang out, cutting through the haze of uncertainty. My heart sank with the weight of dread. Whatever calamity had occurred could alter the delicate balance we were just beginning to uncover. In that fractured moment, doubts flared. Had I been too quick to attach myself to her? To believe that sharing our ambitions could weave a tapestry of something meaningful? I felt a fleeting touch of bitterness surface. After all, Alyssa belonged to a world I had only brushed against, a world where glamorous parties and shadows whispered secrets of affluence and influence. Could she truly understand the depth of my dreams when they often drowned in a sea of turmoil? Then I noticed a little boy sitting alone in the corner, his small frame huddled against a table, tears streaming down his cheeks. The noise around him seemed to fade into a dull roar as fear transformed his bright eyes into wells of uncertainty. Driven by a sudden instinct, I pushed through the crowd, feeling a strange pull to comfort him. When I reached his side, he instinctively wrapped his tiny arms around my waist. At my fault. He sobbed, his voice trembling. "No, sweetie. It's not your fault," I whispered, kneeling to meet his gaze, hoping my presence might provide him a shred of solace. "Sometimes, accidents happen, and it can be scary. But you're safe now." He sniffled, curling into my embrace. "I just wanted ice cream." I smiled gently through the ache of the moment, his innocent wish grounding me in a way that reminded me of simple pleasures amid heartbreak. Children have a way of finding light in the darkest of places. "How about we get that ice cream once this is all over?" With a small nod, he wiped his tears, uncertainty still clinging to him, but momentarily softened by the promise of sweetness. Little moments like this were the stitches mending the frayed edges of my own heart, a reminder that amidst chaos, kindness could still thrive. I glanced back towards the entrance, my stomach twisted again. Still no sign of Alyssa. An overwhelming urgency surged through me, propelling me from the boy's side. I knew I couldn't remain idle, not when the person I had just started to care for was likely facing something monumental beyond that door. I maneuvered past the throng of anxious patrons and finally reached the exit, where the world blurred outside in a haze of chaos and flashing lights. First responders flooded the scene, their serious expressions indicative of the urgency they encountered. My heart raced as I stepped through the threshold, my pulse quickening, searching for any sign of her. "Alyssa!" I shouted, my voice nearly swallowed by the surrounding noise. A few heads turned, but my desperation remained unanswered. Then, community members began to emerge from the chaos, whispering of an accident involving a vehicle, an inexplicable mishap just outside the café, a scene no one prepared for. The news sunk into my bones like a chilling frost. What if the accident had involved someone she knew? As if the universe had conspired to heighten my anxiety, I spotted familiar features, a tall figure emerging from the crowd. My heart leapt momentarily, only to plummet sharply when I recognized him. It was Ethan, the notorious heir whose reputation was as polarizing as his wealth. He weaved through the throng, his expression aloof despite the palpable panic surrounding him. "Ethan?" I couldn't help but voice the name that escaped my lips, confusion, blending with frustration. "Julia," he responded, his tone void of the joviality I remembered from past encounters. He glanced past me, searching as though scanning for the impeccably charming Alyssa. "Where's Alyssa?" I hesitated, caught off guard by his intensity. "I don't know." She went inside to help. His eyes darkened with concern as he pushed past me, barking orders at the emergency personnel who had arrived, but it was his presence that sent coils of unease spiraling in my chest. I didn't know how to process the implication of this handsome stranger wanting to be involved in her life at such a critical moment. As voices droned on and the chaos inched toward order, something shifted within me, an unsettling feeling that events were spiraling out of control, casting shadows over the gleam of hope I had nurtured for Alyssa and me. As Ethan pursued a line of communication I could not access, my heart thundered in protest. Without warning, a chilling realization coursed through me. What if Alyssa's connection to Ethan was deeper than I had imagined? Would her world mingle with the darkness of my unworthiness? Would her kindness evaporate in the wake of his influences? Just then, a loud crash silenced the noise. Murmurs hushed, and all eyes converged on the entrance, the last breaths of normalcy suspended in the air. The moment stretched agonizingly, and I could feel fate leaning in, ready to expose secrets I had barely begun to understand. And then, through the entwined bodies and swirling smoke, a figure stepped out into the lingering dusk, clutching something close to her chest, a perfect glimmer of hope or a sudden harbinger of despair. My breath caught, yearning at the core of my being as I recognized the distressed figure emerging from the chaos. Whatever she held would alter everything. The figure emerged, and my heart raced in a tumultuous mix of hope and dread. As Alyssa stepped into the fray, her face was drawn tight, eyes brimming with a mixture of resilience and uncertainty. In her arms, she clutched a tattered stuffed bear, well-loved token, clearly belonging to the little boy I had comforted moments before. The innocence of the toy contrasted sharply with the turmoil that surrounded us. I felt an instinctive pull to rush to her, to wipe away the worry etched across her brow. But the moment was fraught with tension, and I sensed that the distance between us was growing as quickly as the chaos was dissipating. Ethan surged forward, urgency sparking in his eyes, and I stood frozen, caught between the two of them as they moved toward one another. He reached out a hand, and I marveled at the way they fell into an automatic rhythmic choreography of concern that felt alien to me. "Alyssa, what happened?" Ethan's voice sliced through the din, the flicker of desperation in his gaze a stark reminder of his place in her world. Her lips trembled as she took a breath, still cradling the bear like it was a precious child. "There was an accident. The driver, he didn't see them crossing the street." Each word was heavy, treated with reverence, as if revealing something sacred and mournful. That in that moment of shared revelation, I felt the earth shift beneath me. My heart twisted painfully as I spent too long watching them, marveling at how seamlessly their connection flowed. I had stepped into a world that felt unwelcoming, and the enormity of my feelings struck me with a wave of regret. With each sweet exchange of unspoken understanding, I could sense my own inadequacy ebbing into the background. "Is everyone okay?" Ethan pressed, his voice steady yet laced with urgency. "I think so," Alyssa replied, fighting tears. "The paramedics are helping now. But the little boy, he was so scared." She lifted the bear and tucked it into the crook of her arm, as if absorbing its innocence into her being. Ethan's expression softened, and for a moment, I glimpsed something genuine in his eyes, a commonality in their concern for the boy, a shared moment that bound them together yet left me outside looking in. Overwhelmed, I turned away, needing to break free from the intensity of the unfolding scene. My mind catapulted back to the little boy, and I could almost feel the warmth of his small body against mine, the fragility of hope that lingered even in the darkest times. I was grateful for Alyssa's compassion, for the way she had taken a moment to comfort another heart in turmoil. Yet a still, small voice within me reminded me that as much as I felt drawn to her, she moved in a realm where empathy could reshape destiny. While I stood on the precipice, unsure of my footing. As I stood apart, I felt a tender breeze lift the corners of my worries, an unexpected hand brushing against my wrist. It was a woman from the café, her face lined with kindness and understanding. "You did something wonderful with that little boy," she said, her voice carrying warmth. Not everyone would pause in chaos to offer comfort. I blinked at her, taken aback by her insight. I didn't want him to feel alone." "Exactly," she nodded, her smile brightening. "Remember, even the smallest acts of kindness can seed hope in the most uncertain circumstances. Keep that with you." The weight of her words lingered, stirring something within. Just as I was beginning to find a glimmer of light in the darkness, a commotion erupted from the street, catching my attention. My breath quickened as I turned back to Alyssa and Ethan, who had become completely engrossed in conversation, oblivious to the mounting tension beyond the cafe's threshold. "I just want to make sure he's all right," Alyssa said, voice trembling as she took a step back, still cradling the bear as if it could shield her from whatever winds were approaching. Ethan's demeanor shifted slightly, vulnerability seeping into his polished exterior. I understand why you feel this way, Alyssa. It's okay to care. His voice dropped to a whisper, exposing the sincerity hidden beneath layers of wealth and status. But before she could respond, a shriek pierced the air, halting our world in slow motion. We turned to see a woman bursting through the gathering crowd, her body trembling with sobs. "My son! Where's my son?" she cried, her voice raw and desperate, carving through the fabric of the moment with unrelenting urgency. Alyssa's eyes widened, reflection and anguish playing across her features. It was a chaos I could scarcely bear. A sudden wave of maternal fear rushes through the café and into the depths of our very souls. My heart pounded with dread at the drama unfolding, and the world around us seemed to collapse. Everything we had feared, everything I had desired, laid bare before that haunting scream that I felt unmoored, and suddenly it was as if the threads between Alyssa and Ethan tightened, drawing them closer than ever. In that searing moment of panic, I knew intuition had spoken a revelation of the fragility of life, of how quickly everything could shift. The reality washed over me, tidal and relentless. I could already see the distance that would now lie between Alyssa and me, an unavoidable chasm opened by forces beyond our control. And as the woman pushed through the rushing tide of onlookers, I couldn't help but wonder just how deep our connections ran. Would what I felt for Alyssa withstand this unrelenting storm? Or, as secrets unraveled and souls were tested, would it instead fragment into echoes of what might have been? In the dimming light, it became painfully clear. The chaos engulfing us was only just beginning, and I feared we would be swept away in tides we couldn't predict. I stood on the brink of a tempest, the air thick with uncertainty and dread. The woman's anguished cry echoed within me, rippling through the fleeting moments I had shared with Alyssa and Ethan. I felt as though I were drowning, the lifeline I had only just begun to grasp slipping through my fingers. My heart raced, not only from fear, but from the sobering realization that perhaps I had already lost what I never acknowledged I wanted. The crowd's reaction was swift. Murmurs turned into a wave of panic. Parents clutched their children tighter, the weight of the fearful atmosphere tangible. In a heartbeat, I could see the shifting dynamic among those in the café stayed locked in a protective stance with Alyssa, their worlds suddenly zipping closer together, as if her shared vulnerability had tethered them in a strange intimacy. I turned my gaze back to the frantic mother, her face a canvas of desperation and fury. She was pushing through the throng, her eyes wild, scanning for some semblance of hope amidst the chaos. My pulse quickened. What if the little boy was her son? The thought wrapped around me with icy fingers, squeezing tightly. "Alyssa!" Ethan's voice broke through the swell of commotion. "Let's help her." That call to action ignited something within Alyssa, drawing her from the protective cloak she had wrapped around herself. She instinctively stepped forward, compassion etched into the lines of her face. "Do you know where your son was last seen?" She called to the distraught mother, her voice rising above the noise, radiating a sense of calm I longed to emulate. "What if he's scared? What if he needs me?" The mother's voice trembled as she turned towards Alyssa, caught in that raw, maternal instinct that seemed to cut through all else. I marveled at how effortlessly Alyssa had transformed from a figure of uncertainty to a beacon of comfort, illuminating the darkest corners of our shared chaos. Ethan held the mother's gaze, anchoring her with reassurance. "We will find him. Let's spread out and check all the nearby shops. We won't stop until he's safe." His resolve seemed to seep into the air, gluing the crowd together with a common purpose. I watched their connection deepen, their instincts weaving them together like intricate threads, and the pain of my own isolation pressed heavier on my chest. For just a moment, I had imagined a possibility as navigating tumultuous waters side by side. Yet now I was an observer in this universe of shared pain and hope. The café turned into a flurry of activity, a chaotic orchestra of speeding footsteps and murmured reassurances. People moved with urgency, each attempting to contribute. But for me, each step felt like an invitation to retreat, to shield my heart from the impending fallout. How could I, a mere whisper in this storm, dare to believe I has a place in this tangled web? As people poured into the streets, I lingered behind, trying to gather my thoughts, struggling against the rising tide of emotions. I caught a glimpse of Alyssa, her face a study of determination as she joined Ethan in darting between the buildings. Their figures became indistinguishable amid the swirling crowd, their commitment a silent vow carved from desperation. Then, in that moment of frenetic chaos, a shift occurred. A soft tap on my shoulder broke through the whirlwind. I turned to find a young girl, no older than 10, her eyes wide but filled with solace. She stretched an unsteady hand out, holding a small paper heart she had folded meticulously. "I made this for you," she said softly, "because sometimes we need reminders that love is everywhere, even when we're scared." The small act of kindness struck me like a lightning bolt. In the heart of destruction, she had found a way to share hope, an anchor in the storm. My breath hitched as I accepted the paper heart, the weight of her gesture a balm to my frayed spirit. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice cracking with the gravity of her words. But amidst the flicker of hope ignited by her innocence, a harrowing thought crept in. The paper heart could not shield me from the encroaching shadows. I knew that the tumult around us had just begun to unravel. As the crowd surged and retreated, I felt an emptiness claw at my resolve, a whisper echoing in the distance. Could I remain grounded in this storm while Alyssa and Ethan took flight? Where did I fit into this narrative, in both their lives and this unfolding tragedy? The sound of sirens pierced through the air, crescendoing into a wail that felt far too close. A new wave of dread rolled in and consumed the edges of my hope. My heart raced once more, as if a drumbeat had begun anew, and I turned, desperate to find Alyssa's reassuring presence. But she was lost among the sea of frantic bodies, and for the first time, I feared I might not find her again. In that suffocating moment, the paper heart crumpled in my hand, the promise of hope shattered in the face of uncertainty. Just as I prepared to give in to despair, another shriek echoed, a tone of terror that had nothing to do with the chaos outside and everything to do with the fragility of the threads I clung to. "Where are you?" The cry came from deep within my own soul, helpless and raw, as I spiraled into the unknown, feeling the ground shift yet again beneath my feet. I took a deep breath, a blend of fear and desperation mingling with hope, trying to urge myself forward, but I could no longer ignore the unavoidable truth. The journey ahead would demand everything, and the stakes had never been higher. I stumbled back from the crowd, my heart pounding as confusion and despair clamored for my attention. The cacophony of sirens, shining lights, and murmurs of panic mixed in with the choking remnants of hope. The paper heart crumpled in my trembling fist felt like a relic of a time when I could dare to dream. How long had I been standing there, lost in the turbulence, when the world around me continued to swirl? I could see the chaos, an urgent ballet of shadow and light, where courage brushed against fear. Yet within me, an overwhelming stillness wrapped around my thoughts, frozen in a moment where the possibility of intimacy felt as foreign as the city was bustling. That I finally turned and ran toward where I last saw Alyssa and Ethan, panic threading through my veins, snapping me into desperate action. Each step carried the weight of fear, the fear of losing them, of losing myself, and the crushing realization that they were the very lifeline I had started to believe in. As I moved through the throngs of worried faces, the grating noise of worry and uncertainty began to recede. In the distance, I spotted the remnants of the café, its windows sparkling with shattered glass, a ghost of what it had been moments before. The kindness of the little girl and my flickering hope gave way to something sharper, a gnawing doubt that rendered my heart heavy once more. What if something happened to them? The thought choked me, stirring the tempest within. A maelstrom of jealousy and inadequacy resided in it. Their closeness, their promise of support had started to illuminate the darkness in my own life, a light I felt undeserving of now, trapped beneath the weight of my own fears. Just before I reached the café, an arm shot out and grabbed me, pulling me behind the cover of a nearby store. I froze, the surprise and alarm frightening me more than any threat outside. It was Ethan, his face taut with concern, and despite the chaos around us, there was something comforting about his presence. "Where were you?" He scanned my face for signs of distress, his brow furrowed, his voice tinged with urgency. "Are you okay?" The words tangled in my throat, choked by the emotions that had been clawing upward like weeds in the garden of my heart. I faltered. How could I express everything weighing on me when the world outside demanded hope and bravery? Stay close, he urged, glancing back toward the cafe before settling his eyes on mine. We need to find Alyssa. The way he spoke her name twisted something inside me, both nourishing and painful. There was no jealousy in his tone, only a fierce devotion that stitched them together in a way I would never quite share. I'm right here. Alyssa's voice broke through the confusion, a candle in the tempest, and my heart leaped as she emerged from the crowd. She rushed toward us, her face illuminated by a mixture of relief and determination. I was trying to find a way to help the mother. I must do something. Ethan and I fell silent, letting her passionate resolve wash over us like a balm. She fired questions at us, her mind racing, and for a moment, we were bound by a shared purpose once again. All swept away were the feelings of isolation. We were one united front, like soldiers plotted on a battlefield, every knowledge, strength, or hesitation coalescing into urgency. But as the three of us stood there, I couldn't shake the feeling that my place among them was tenuous at best. With each passing moment, it became clearer. Deep within, I felt like an outsider, a bystander in a life that seemed built for the brave and the worthy. Just as we tried to solidify our plan, the distance echoed with something unexpected, a voice, deep and chilling, calling through the air. You think you can save him? You've missed the mark. My heart sank as the voice reverberated, panic clawing its way up my spine, causing a tremor in my repose. I whipped around to see a shadowy figure lurking at the entrance of the cafe, a cruel grin plastered across his face. The chaos dulled as everyone froze, a sudden stillness pressing against our frantic breaths. What do you mean? Alyssa challenged, stepping forward, her spirit unyielding in the face of uncertainty. The figure's laughter echoed hollowly before he answered. You're too late. The boy you're searching for, you've already missed your chance. The words struck us like arrows, piercing through the fragile veil of hope. Something about his presence felt ominous, as if his very essence radiated despair, stronger than anything we had faced thus far. The blood drained from my face, fear colliding with dawning horror. What did he know about the boy? Ethan's grip tightened around my arm, and I could feel the pulse of his determination echo in me as he mouthed the words I longed to believe. We won't let him down. But the voice clung to the space between us, a promise left unfulfilled, and I couldn't shake the growing dread that perhaps this was only the beginning. In a heartbeat, the air thickened around us, pulling taut between hope and despair, once again teetering on the brink of a precipice. Whatever was about to unfold, I could sense the world was irrevocably shifting, and I teetered on the edge of something far more profound than a mere search for a boy. It stretched beyond the now, unfurling into uncharted territories of love and heartbreak, all spiraling toward an unknown fate. My pulse quickened, echoing in the stillness as the man's chilling words sank in, filling the air with dread. I couldn't tear my gaze away from his twisted smile, the kind born of malevolence, and the darkness that seemed to wrap around him like an ominous cloak. I felt the weight of Ethan's reassuring grip on my arm, but it contrasted sharply with the suffocating fear coiling around my heart. Alyssa stood her ground, steadfast like a lighthouse against a raging storm, defying whatever lay ahead. What do you know? She demanded, her voice unwavering despite the tremors that coursed through me. Where is he? The figure chuckled, a low, resonant sound that sent chills down my spine. You believe you're heroes in this story of lost souls, he sneered, but your intentions are futile. The only one who can save him is the one you would least expect. With that cryptic remark, he turned, vanishing into the shadowy depths of the cafe, leaving behind a tainted sense of dread as the stillness shattered into a flurry of hushed conversations. Panic fluttered in my chest like a caged bird. The crowd around us burst into a fray, or perhaps they were merely trying to escape the overwhelming reality of something we could not understand. Ethan pulled me closer, ready to cut through the confusion and reach Alyssa's side. We need a plan, he insisted, but the moment felt burdened, as if the shadow of uncertainty had seeped into our veins, blocking the clarity we desperately needed. Wait. Alyssa called out, pressing her fingers against her temples, lost in her own whirlpool of thoughts, her expression a mixture of panic and resolve. The boy. I think I know who he might be. I saw him earlier. He was talking to some kids in the park. Ethan's eyes lit with understanding. Then we need to get to the park. But the thought of moving again felt like a race against shadows, the memory of the man's words drumming relentlessly in my mind. What if it was too late? What if the boy had already slipped away into the void we were desperately trying to pull him from? Without another moment to spare, we slipped through the crowd, tearing ourselves away from the chaos of the broken café, through alleys screaming with noise and confusion. In between bursts of frantic conversations, fragments of conversations snaked their way into my thought show. Lives had been disrupted, dreams shattered. The boy's fate entwined with impacts so much larger than any of us could grasp. Each step felt heavier, accumulating burdens that tightened around my heart. What if we're lost? I murmured, nearly losing my voice in the cacophony of the city. Ethan turned to me, his conviction unfaltering. We can't afford to think like that, he insisted, grasping my shoulder with a firmness that ignited a flicker of faith in my heart. Remember why we are doing this. For him. For that mother. Alyssa, usually the voice of unyielding hope, was now silent, glancing sidelong at me, her countenance dimmed by unnerving thoughts. A pang of regret tugged within memories of us laughing, of shared dreams and fragile hopes, felt haunting in the face of this impending doom. When we finally reached the park, the air felt different. It was charged with a tension I could taste, the typically soothing chirps of birds stifled into a surreal quiet. My eyes scanned the area, searching for any sign of the boy. Where are you? I whispered to the emptiness, feeling the inescapable pull of guilt wash over Megwilt for feeling unworthy of the hope we were chasing. Guilt for expecting peace when chaos had been our relentless companion. And then I caught sight of a small figure seated on a bench, a glimmer of innocence shining beneath the shadows of our bleak reality. My heart skipped a beat. There. I pointed, barely able to breathe. Urgency propelling me forward. As we approached the boy, he looked up, revealing wide, terrified eyes that held so much sorrow. But it wasn't just fear I saw. There was something deeper, a flicker of recognition that mirrored my own feelings of despair. You're late, he whispered, voice trembling. And in that moment, dread thickened in the pit of my stomach. Before I could respond, the same chilling laughter erupted around us. Our mysterious figure emerged once more, stepping into the fading sunlight, basking in the chaos he had orchestrated. I warned you, he said, satisfaction dripping from his words. You ventured into the darkness without realizing the light you seek isn't what it seems. His words echoed chillingly. The somber understanding brushed against the edges of the boy's expression, a fragile thread weaving our fates together. I glanced at Alyssa and Ethan, the hope we had fought to hold on to crumbling like dry leaves. There, beneath the weight of the world, I realized how very close we were to losing everything we held dear. And just as an anguished cry rose in my throat, the darkness began to seep in, coiling around my heart more tightly than ever before. Was this our final stand? Or had we merely begun to unravel a truth neither of us was prepared to face? As a haunting silence settled in, I knew one thing for certain. Whatever lay ahead would forever alter the course of our journey, and I was terrified of what that would mean for us all. The park dimmed, the air thick with threats more profound than the sunset looming overhead. Each heartbeat echoed with uncertainty as the man moved ever closer, the shadows enveloping him like a symbiotic cloak of malevolence. The boy's wide eyes remained locked on me, pleading for an escape he likely believed was impossible. I felt the tremor of my own fear and the weight of responsibility that lurked behind it. What do you want? Alyssa's voice sliced through the quiet, but it trembled at the edges, mirroring the vulnerability we all felt. The man's smile broadened, revealing teeth that seemed larger and sharper in the fading light. What I want is irrelevant, he replied, his tone oozing delight. What you want? Now, that's the true question. With a flourish, he gestured toward the boy, who recoiled slightly at the gesture. Perhaps he is the key to your desires. Stop. Ethan barked, stepping forward protectively. Let him go? But the man merely chuckled, the sound reverberating like dark music that hollowed us out. Such boldness, but the heart is weak, is it not? You want to save him, yet can you truly unravel the darkness that binds you? My throat tightened, and I grappled with the swirling tempest of questions. What darkness? What binding? The hesitation in Ethan's and Alyssa's eyes told me I wasn't the only one drowning in fears brought to light. Just tell us what you want, I shouted, desperation surging through me like a wave crashing against the cliffs of resolve. What do you want from us? He shrugged, dismissing the question with a casual flick of his wrist. I want nothing but a little fun, he replied, the malicious glint in his eyes casting a sinister shadow over his words. I want to see how deep your love runs and how swiftly it can turn into betrayal. The boy's whimper broke through the tense standoff, and it anchored me. Please don't hurt them, he whispered, though the tremor in his voice signaled the wear of innocence already thrumming within him. For a brief flicker of a moment, my heart cracked open wider, and I could almost hear it echo across the universe, a resonance of unconditional love laced with startling terror. Then the man's gaze shifted sharply, locking onto the boy with a predatory intensity. But innocence must sometimes be sacrificed for truth. Tell me, little one, what do you know of your own worth? The question burst through the air like a thunderclap, forcing me to step back from the abyss of shadows creeping closer. How could a child, bound in fear, recognize the essence of his worth? In that moment, I realized that not only did I need to save the boy, I needed to help him catch a glimpse of his own value before it was snatched away by the darkness. "No!" I shouted, my voice breaking as I reached towards him, stretching out my hand as if I could bridge the gap that fear had created. You are so much more significant than you know. You are not a pawn. You are brave and strong. But the man laughed again, a spiraling sound that echoed around us, shaking the very foundations of my conviction. What bolsters a child's spirit, if not the illusion of safety? He flourished his arms wide, embracing the twilight. Can you grant him what you promise? Can you guard him against what has been wrought? Ultimately, innocence is fleeting, clinging desperately to the illusions we create. Alyssa stepped beside me, steadying her breath. It doesn't matter what you believe, she shouted over the laughter that threatened to swallow us. We are not bound by your darkness. We choose light. Her defiance ignited a spark of hope that blazed within me. I turned to Ethan, whose usual courage strengthened at her words. We were fragile but unbroken, together wielding a light that could guide the boy back to himself. But in that charged moment, fraught with possibility and turmoil, I sensed a rattle deep inside me, a splintering doubt. What was this darker truth lurking at the edges of my own heart? In the frenzy of emotions, I felt the boy become a central sun, pulling us in orbit. If he fell, would we plunge into that abyss too? As the man roared with laughter, I turned back to the boy, feasting on the gaps of uncertainty threading through my soul. Trust us, I murmured, hoping my voice could weave a cocoon of protection around him. We will find you a way out. His eyes shimmered with hope, but the shadows lurking in the space between us were pulling tight, threatening to unravel everything. It was as if the universe held its breath, waiting for the next move, and I could feel that inevitable clash nearing a cataclysm on the edge of awakening. And just as we prepared to step forward, to bridge the divide, the earth shifted beneath us, shaking the very ground where we stood. A pulse of energy rippled out, and from the darkness within the man's gaze, I caught a glimpse of something sinister, a flicker of a prophecy unfolding, thoughts weaving into a tapestry far beyond our control. The world pressed in on us, and as I looked from Ethan to Alyssa, I knew then whatever choice we made in that charged moment would change everything. And that unanswered question lingered like a dagger in my heart. Were we truly here to save him, or did the inevitability of our choices spiral into something much darker, something even I couldn't bear to face? The ground continued to tremble beneath us, a constant reminder of how precarious our situation had become. I felt the reverberations rise through my body, mirroring the chaotic tempest of emotions swirling in my chest. Each tremor seemed to amplify the weight of the man's words, pressing against my mind like haunting bells tolling in the distance. Do you see? He taunted, his grin splintering into something grotesque. The shifting earth knows the truth of your hearts. It understands the frail nature of your courage. Ethan clenched his fists by his sides, his jaw set with unwavering determination. Well, protect him. We won't let you twist our love into betrayal. But even as I stood shoulder to shoulder with Ethan, I could feel the echoes of uncertainty sliding under my skin, washing over me like icy water. What if our love was not enough? What if the fractures in my own resolve could be manipulated just as easily as the man toyed with the boy's innocence? Enough. Alyssa's voice rang out again, now stronger, tinged with a fierce urgency that spread like wildfire. You think you can break us with your words, but you are wrong. She turned her gaze to the boy, who still stood trembling, a fragile flame flickering in the wind. You are not alone. We are here with you, and as long as you believe, we can overcome anything. Her fierce declaration injected a faint glimmer of hope into the air. I saw the boy's eyes widen, a hint of something awakening within him, if only for a brief moment. Like the first blush of dawn, just before the sun breaks free from the horizon, in that fleeting instant, I fought against the encroaching darkness threatening to extinguish that light. You are greater than this man's words, I echoed, bridging the space that separated us with my heart. You are courageous. You are loved. Yet even as I spoke, doubt wrapped its tendrils around my thoughts. What worth was my reassurances when my own heart was heavy with fear? The man's gaze grew solemn, unnaturally still for a heartbeat. But love can be a double-edged sword. His demeanor shifted, becoming almost contemplative. What happens to that love when faced with true horror? When the ones you trust most betray you? When the very foundation you stand upon crumbles? The trembling ground sank deeper into my bones, resonating with the profound force of his words. My mind spiraled briefly, picturing moments of fractured trust, Ethan's hidden fears, Alyssa's unspoken burdens, and my own inadequacies. What if there were layers of our connections that remained unexplored, vulnerabilities that could be twisted, bending our relationships like fragile glass? Stop! Ethan shouted, desperately trying to pull us back from the edge. We won't play your games. But there was an unsettling shift in the air, and in that moment, the fragile connection between us seemed to waver. The boy shrank back against the wall of darkness, his resolve shaken, echoing the doubt that had slinked into my heart. It became clear to me, what blurred the lines of our love could ultimately be our undoing, that I felt my heart race, and no longer merely for the fear of losing him, but for the crumbling faith in us that threatened to unravel. We need to confront him together. Face whatever darkness he throws at us. But the man's laughter enveloped us once more, a dark melody that wrapped around our resolve like barbed wire. Then let's see how tightly your bonds can withstand the threat of betrayal. I can show you visions, revelations that will haunt your thoughts and tear at your allegiance. Before I could comprehend the full implication of his words, the shadows began to morph, swirling like a tempest under his command. A shroud of darkness cascaded over us, and the boy's whimper broke through my thoughts, the sound full of trembling fear that sent chills racing down my spine. Stay close, Alyssa called, grasping the boy's hand firmly in hers. The act was small, a gesture of warmth, but I saw the boy's face lift with a flicker of gratitude. In that moment, I marveled at the strength found in a connection that could pierce even the most suffocating darkness. Yet the shadows pushed forth relentlessly, and I felt a dizzying compulsion to shield the boy, pushing boldly against the tendrils reaching out towards him. You can't lose hope, I breathed, directing my words at him, my heart raw. Understand that we are right here, fighting with you. Our love does not falter. Just as I thought we had gained ground, a violent shift took place. An unearthly roar pierced the air as the shadows surged and enveloped the space around us. And in that shroud, the unmistakable face of someone I had long thought lost emerged, a specter from the past, a haunting echo of the love I believed I had buried. My heart sank as I recognized the person who had once filled my life with pure light. A pang of sorrow gripped me, for I was suddenly reminded of the part of myself I had closed off, the part that had been trapped in betrayal. In that moment, a heartbreaking realization struck. To shield the boy, I would have to confront my own ghosts. The man's laughter crescendoed in malicious delight, and the world dimmed around us, teetering perilously on the edge of chaos and uncertainty. As the shadows closed in, I felt the suffocating weight of the past intertwining with my resolve. Could I face the truth of my betrayal, a force that had the power to splinter everything I loved? And then it struck me, perhaps saving the boy meant erasing the barriers I had built to shelter my heart from the dark. Perhaps it would be in reclaiming the light that I could truly become his guardian. But as I turned to share this revelation, to fight the suffocation of despair with the flickers of hope. An unseen tremor surged through the ground again, and with it came a shocking twist of fate that promised to reshape everything I thought I knew. The earth trembled, and in that chaotic moment, the shadows twisted into a swirling vortex, revealing the echoes of betrayal I had long buried deep within my heart. Amidst the confusion, I saw my past come alive in front of me, the figure of someone I thought was gone, my mother. Her presence felt like a charged storm, a mixture of love and sorrow, heartache wrapped into one. I could hardly process the truth crashing down around me. I had spent so long running from her, afraid of the vulnerability that came with such love, keeping my heart from damage, as if armor could repel the deepest wounds. But standing there, her eyes filled with something pure and almost ethereal, I recognized the minuscule thread that connected her to the boy clinging to my hand. Just as he had been terrified, I had been just as lost, drowning in insecurity, simultaneously yearning for acceptance while burdened by guilt. I felt the shadows surge around me again, and her face flickered like a candle caught in a gust of wind, the whisper of a mother's compassion mingling with unearthing truths of neglect and regret. "Alyssa," I called, desperately searching for her strength, but it was Ethan who stepped forward, his eyes narrowed in determination. "You need to embrace what you've lost, Julia. You can't save the boy without confronting your own darkness." The shrouded figure of the man loomed larger, as if affirming the commands he had wrought among us. My heart raced with dread and resolve. I stood paralyzed, a million memories flashing through me, past wounds, the times I had cowered at the thought of loss, the countless apologies I would never be able to deliver. Betrayal in its most intimate forms surged forward, unshielded, mixing with layers of love. Unfurling the tendrils of hurt would require facing every fear that haunted my soul, and I realized that in order to protect that boy, the innocence I saw in him, I needed to anchor myself in truth. "Alyssa," I cried again, my voice strained with urgency. I think we need to show him that we can reclaim the light. We can save him, but only if we stop running from our own shadows." With a fierce nod, Alyssa stepped closer to me, her determination igniting a fire inside my heart. "We journey together. We're bound by love, not fear." Her hand found mine. I could feel the warmth of her conviction radiating, pulling me from the abyss. "Ethan, hold the boy safe," I commanded, feeling a profound sense of courage creeping back into my voice. "We must face him together." In that moment, darkness ricocheted around us, but an ember flickered, an indication that all was not lost. Even the boy's small frame became suffused with strength as he gripped Alyssa's hand, and I quickly followed suit, squeezing the warmth of the connection we formed. Facing the man, I felt the shadows retreat slightly, as if the display of our unity diffused some of his power. "You're not stronger," I declared, my voice now steady and filled with conviction. "Our vulnerabilities are what bind us, not your manipulations. They're what have allowed us to love." The man sneered, his features twisting outrageously. "You think love can save him? Love can be a weakness exploited. Betrayal ripples through. You don't understand anything," I declared fiercely, a swell of memories punctuating my emotional storm. "You can't know what it means to love and to be broken, to redeem love in relationships. That is not weakness, it is strength. We know our worth when we stand together," I insisted, my voice now unwavering. Alyssa stood taller, her eyes sparkling with defiance. "And our connection, our willingness to protect him even in the scariest moments shows that light can pierce through any darkness." As I turned once more to the boy, I saw the dawning understanding wash over him. He was a brave spirit, a flicker of light shining brighter than any shadow could cover. "It is safe to trust, to allow love, even when it hurts," I whispered to him, willing him to know that whatever outcome lay ahead, the depths of his spirit would never fizzle as long as he chose to believe. Then, together, we moved forward into the storm of shadows swirling around us, my heart pulsing with hope. We instinctively clasped each other tight, love forging bonds against every force of betrayal. The man scoffed, but I could see it, the disillusion spilling from him like cracked glass. We stood united, myself, Alyssa, Ethan, and the boy, and it felt like the strength we gathered eclipsed all the chaos. The shadows receded just as the sun broke through, bathing the space in pure light. The weight of betrayal shifted away, stripping the man of his power until he faded into the air around us, like smoke dispersing before fire. Suddenly, with one final breath, I realized everything had transformed, no longer trapped in the cocoon of the past, but free to embrace the beauty of what love could harbor. Hope surged within me, lightened by the acceptance of my wounds and the ultimate truth, that my heart, even when cracked, could not only endure but thrive. As we began to walk away, confident in our newfound strength, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude swell within me. "Mom," I whispered, glancing back at the shifting shadows, "I'm finally learning to forgive you and myself." And as the warmth of the evening sun enveloped us, I smiled, resonating with the realization that we could rebuild. Love would ultimately guide us through. We were not merely granted a second chance. We were given an opportunity to shape something glorious from the ruins. In that newfound light, we each found our worth, intertwined yet thriving, and with every breath I took, I felt richer than the million-dollar dreams I'd once chased, for I now carried something sure: love, and its unexpected resilience. As we stepped into the bright horizon, hand in hand, Alyssa's words hung in the air like a promise. "Together, we can turn darkness into light." And as I took in the world anew, I realized that the ties of love had woven a tapestry of strength around us that no darkness could ever sever. "We are the light that guides us," I whispered, heart brimming with hope. And with that, I walked boldly into the future, for I finally understood that love had the power to trump darkness, to transform everything. All my heart wanted was to believe, and now I did, knowing that nothing could steal the light we held between us.